right. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and excited to have with me today Dr. Kevin Reese, PhD, six-time author, and he is about to have a book launching tomorrow. So our timing is perfect. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually a nine-time author now.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I
So
stand
this
corrected.
this my ninth book, it's my ninth book, but it is the one.
It is the one. All
It
right.
is the one, it's the one that will be read for another 300 years. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So yeah, well, let's talk about your journey of what has gotten you to this ninth book. Like what's been your inspiration behind putting this book out into the universe?
This new book, which is called Medical Monopoly, and everyone just calls it the Red Book. It it details the scheme of the medical system and how we're being scammed, essentially, when it comes to chronic, long lasting, nagging symptoms. Now, of course, they're well equipped to handle acute and wounds and, open heart surgery and all this emergency stuff they're great at. But when it comes to chronic conditions, they're awful and they're leaving people in darkness. And so this book I pretty much wrote in my head for a year. And then by the time I got to paper, it took me a month. So it is short, it is sharp. You see how short it is, right? Most people that write about this stuff, the book's like this thick, and I just want something short and sharp. And, it's like a bucket of water that's going to wake someone up. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
again,
a wake up call. That's the answer to your question. We needed just a bucket of cold water. And so I expect my people and the people that follow me, I expect that they'll know 75% of the information already, but they're going to buy 5 to 10 copies and they're going to hand it to their friends and their family because I provided them the wake up call. And no one listens to you, right? You go to your husband or your wife or your mom or your dad or your cousin or your friend, and they're like, no, I'm going to go see my doctor. Thank you, though. They don't hear it because they're asleep, because they've been programmed and manipulated their whole life. And so now you can just hand them this. You can hand them the red book and say, read this. It'll take 3 hours.
yeah. Well, I had the awakening, certainly. I told you before I hit record that I had moved into a house that had been condemned for toxic mold. The sellers lied to us on the disclosure.
Mm.
Um, And so I suddenly got very sick and kept crying to my family. I feel like I've been poisoned. I feel like I've been poisoned. Western medicine couldn't do anything. They just kept wanting to say, take this pill, try this. It's this. Let's put a camera down your throat because my throat was closing up. My skin had a rash. Like I had so many crazy symptoms, like 20 crazy things going on. And finally, I found my way to a nutritionist and holistic healer. And that's when it was like, again, like my eyes were open to um, I don't take Tylenol for a headache. I put a warm rice bag on my neck, or, I do some breathing exercises. But yeah, I love that you're putting this wake up call out there because it's so needed.
Yeah, people are being led down this very deep, dark tunnel. And by the time they find me, they could be in what I call medical prison. They're on 15 medications. They've had this taken out. They've had their gallbladder taken out. Their thyroid is missing. A piece of their colon is missing. It's like, and they're like, save me. It's like, well, you're disabled now.
Yeah.
They've dis- they've given you a disability now, and so we can make you feel better. But the key is for nobody to end up disabled.
Yeah. See, my mind's like, well, going thinking about all of this because I read somewhere recently that said, you they're not creating cures, they're creating customers. And so, because then you just have to keep going back. I particularly when if somebody has the TV on, I'm not a huge TV watcher, but if they have it on and it's just like commercial after commercial after commercial after commercial of pharmaceuticals, um, and I laugh to myself because I'm like, oh my gosh, the side effects sound worse than what it is they're trying to help somebody with. Like, oh, do you have a rash? Okay, we'll take this. But your head may explode, or, I'm being exaggerating, but
Yeah. 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 And, this all came about pretty much in the 1980s when cable television came out. It's when we expanded from like 5 stations to 30 stations or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, CNN came out, and ESPN came out, and Nickelodeon came out, and MTV came out. And, all these stations came out, and the drug companies were like, oh, we can target people. So, okay, let's do the drug commercials during the news because that's when the older folks are watching with symptoms. And then the food corporations, Saturday morning cartoons. Let's do Keebler Elf. Let's do Tony the Tiger. And so they started advertising to us, and they started getting us hooked on all this stuff. And this medical monopoly, as I call it, exploded in the 1980s. By the time the 1990s came around, we're done for.
yeah. Now, what about, well, there's so many questions that are going through my head, like sugar. Is sugar the enemy? I mean, you just talked about Tony the Tiger and the characters that they made, so that I remember sitting in front of my little TV and watching, and yeah, wanting to eat that big bowl of Captain Crunch.
Yeah. Well, sugar isn't culprit all by itself. You need certain minerals in order to process sugar. In order for insulin to work properly, you need certain minerals. So the real, or one of the root causes, is going to be a mineral deficiency, which is coming from a lack of nutrition in the soil. So
Oh, I saw
we
that.
don't have, we don't have as much nutrition in the soil. So our plants aren't as nutritious as they were 100 years ago.
Right.
And,
Right.
and so if you have all these people walking around with nutritional deficiencies and they can't process sugar, and then the food giants are pushing sugar down your throat, well, it's the perfect storm. And what better way to get people into this medical prison than to give them type 2 diabetes?
Yeah.
Because type 2 diabetes operates on a scale, it's progressive. So if you don't reverse it, it progresses. And by the time you're 20 years deep on diabetes, well, now your kidneys are going to start going. Now your heart is going to start going. Now your eyesight is going to start going. Now your limbs are going to start deteriorating. So type 2 diabetes leads to tons and tons and tons of more revenue streams. And so this is all an elaborate scheme, and
Wow.
nobody knows it.
It's just so breaking. I mean, just the greed of it. So, speaking of the soil, is there anything people can do to add some manure, like if they're growing their own garden? I mean, what what are the options for folks?
Well, supplements. We have to supplement ourselves. We have to take supplements. It is a human handicap now. So it is very necessary, especially powders. Powders are the most prolific way to get high nutrition because it's in its kind of raw form, but it's kind of freeze dried into a powder,
Yeah.
As far as the actual gardens and farms go, they can put supplements in the soil. Right now they use a fertilizer that only has 3 nutrients, and there's 90 essential nutrients, so that's only 3 of 90. So we're kind of doomed here, you know, and nobody's talking about it, at least on the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, I met with my nutritionist from a couple years ago. Just a few weeks ago, we had a little Zoom chat just to catch up and say hi and do a little healing session. And I told her, I said, I tell everybody you saved my life because when I was at my worst and thankfully found my way to her, yeah, I was probably taking 20, 30 different, I would try certain supplements. My body wouldn't react well to it, but then I would try others. And we found what was working for my system. And then
Right.
everything started to align, like everything started, my vitamin D levels started to straighten out. My vitamin C levels straightened out. It was like, all of a sudden my body was like, oh, okay, now you're giving me what we need. So yeah, again, I'd say yes to all of that because I've lived it.
Yeah, and going to someone that worked with you is key. If you go to your medical monopoly doctor, they're not going to do that. And they don't know anything about nutrition. And their blood labs don't even, check anything. I mean, they don't even check for vitamin C, and that's the most famous vitamin in the world.
Yeah.
And
No,
if
I
you
had to ask them.
if you're low in vitamin C, you get a condition called scurvy. you know, so uh, these white coats, they don't check for the full scope of what makes up your body, the raw materials that make up your body. That's nutrition.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I had come across, and I loved this question. I told you I was going to ask you because while we're on this subject, why is your average client a 60-year-old woman? And here I am knocking on 59's door. So I'm like,
Right.
oh, I so want to know the answer to this question.
Well, I don't really know, but my guess is that women work very hard through the decades, and they give their all to their family and their children and their household, and they're kind of micromanagers usually, and they're looking at all the itty bitty details, and they get stressed, and um, one day they wake up and they're unhealthy, and usually that happens around menopause in your early 50s. And then you go to the medical monopoly, like, help me, and they can't. And then it's kind of like a wake up call. And then what does a typical woman do? Because she's a micromanager, she researches. Men don't typically research. Men are stubborn and they're okay with going down with the ship. My mother is a pretty darn healthy 75-year-old woman because she has listened to me for 15 years. My dad is living a hell on earth. He's in medical prison because he's a stubborn man and he's going down with the ship. And so what we found is 60-year-old women, whether they're 57 or whether they're 70, they're just all in that range. They find me on social media and they watch the videos and they feel a connection, and eventually they walk through our door and, you know, get an analysis and join our membership. And once they're in because we got the solution over here. So
Awesome. So now you just said membership. So do you work with people one-on-one in groups? What does this membership entail?
well, I used to have a clinic and I used to take clients, but it started becoming dangerous. I get attacked a lot, and as my popularity has grown on social media, I have 500,000 followers,
Wow.
and that comes with a lot of liability. So I got out of that side of things and I went the membership route. And so what we do is we created a virtual learning situation. So you join the membership, you get the information so that you can heal yourself. So we're essentially teachers.
I love that. I mean,
And
it's like
so,
it's
yeah,
empowerment.
yes, it's like a little academy. We're helping people with what I call head to toe healing. That's the method that I created. That's the healthcare that I created. And they have to save themselves. So there's no one-on-one calls. There's none of that. We live stream every day, Monday to Sunday. So one of our members, who is a dentist, once said that this membership is like AA for broken bodies. And if you know anything about AA, the whole basis of it is meetings. And so that's what we've created. We've created a culture where people want to come to the meetings. It's community.
Yes.
It's peacefulness, because you might not get that in your household. And there's always a meeting right there on Zoom, because we're doing it every day. And every day is something maybe a little different. And so, yeah, we're teaching people how to heal themselves from head to toe, and it helps them and it keeps me safe.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry that you were threatened that badly that you had to move that direction. But I'm also so glad that you took that pain and turned it into purpose and found a, another way to do it. I mean, that's just beautiful that yeah, you kept with your mission. I know I was going to say something and it flew out of my head. Oh, one of the things I saw a list when I was on your website. Um, of the head to toe. And so I was just kind of scanning through it and I was like, oh, I was struggling with that. And tinnitus or tinnitus, some people, I don't know how to pronounce it right because I've heard it both ways.
Ringing in the ears
Yes,
works.
the ringing in the
Yeah,
ears.
yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
I used to have it horribly, and now I'll just occasionally have it pop into my left ear. Um, but again, because I've been doing a lot of this holistic work, a lot of meditation work, a lot of changing my diets and supplements and so forth. So, same sort of thing, right? Like being able to do the whole body, um, mind, body, soul. Do you do like the spiritual aspect of it, the physical, the mental health part of it, like all is one?
Yeah, we teach mindfulness training as part of it, which is the ability to manage your emotions and your thoughts and such. And then there's postural alignment therapy, which is your musculoskeletal alignment. And then, of course, there's nutrition. Those are the three sections of the body. So your body is like a vehicle. It's an actual structure that walks through the world. That's the musculoskeletal system. But then that vehicle needs fuel. The fuel is the nutrition. And then something needs to run it. So you have to apply an onboard computer, and that's your brain. So we get after all three, and that's what makes up what I call head to toe healing. So when I do an analysis, we're looking at all three to see what's going on. So using tinnitus as an example, I would look at your pelvis, I would look at your spine, I would look at the position of your neck. Is your neck falling out onto your chest? Do you have bulging discs up there in the cervical? Are your ears over your ankles? If I draw a line all the way up, this is the alignment of the structure. And can that cause ringing in the ears? Oh, yes. But then again, could it be a nutritional deficiency? Oh, yes. And then could it be stress in your mental state? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I had I had a client before we shut down the clinic. She had tinnitus, and we hit her with the kitchen sink, and she improved all her symptoms practically went away except for the ringing in the ears, which is interesting because we get rid of ringing in the ears all the time. Like if you look at our testimonies, it's, tonight is gone, tonight is gone, tonight is gone. But for some reason, hers stuck around. So I poke around, I investigate. Come to find out, every time she gets angry, the ringing in the ears goes. So I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So you don't know where the symptom's coming from. It could be coming from one of the three, two of the three, or all three of the three. But the philosophy of head to toe healing is that we get after all three anyway. So
Right.
you might never know where it came from. It doesn't matter.
No, just make it go away.
Just make it go away and understand the philosophy that we need to be in alignment. And then you know, healing is a verb. I tell my people this all the time. Healing is a verb. It's a process. It doesn't stop. So when you go this way, you're healing. When you go the other way, you're not healing. So it's on the person to choose which way they want to go. And so when we do an analysis, the person is given a symptom score. So let's say you have 30 symptoms, which isn't a great life. 30 symptoms, it's a lot of symptoms. Our job is to teach them how to heal themselves so that they can bring that 30 down to a 20. Life is getting better now. And then they can bring that 20 down to a 10. Life is much, much better now. And not everyone's walking around with a 0. I'm not walking around with a 0. I'm 45 years old. I have some symptoms. And I just told on my live stream just the other day, I had to wear a hand brace because I was so dedicated to writing this book. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I was just at the computer like, and I'm like hurting, you know? And so I'm not free of symptoms either. I have a few symptoms myself, but still a very healthy 45-year-old man. There's some 45-year-olds out there that aren't doing very well at all. There's some 35-year-olds out there that aren't doing very well at all. And so we're trying to bring those symptoms down. And
Yeah.
if we can get you down to about a 5, you're living a good life.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you were at a 30. And so to me, this is much more accurate than just getting blood labs, than getting your spine scanned. Our head to toe analysis is so thorough, it really opens your eyes to what we're doing. It gives people the aha moment, and there's nobody in the world that does it. I'm the only one. Until I teach other people how to do it.
Yeah. So
Uh,
let's steer for 1 second to autoimmune.
sure.
Um, that I'd never had any issues before, and that's the one lingering thing is psoriasis that was triggered. Um, and I keep it under control to an extent, but I know in my heart, like I'm like, this was a switch that was flipped on by this, you know, environment I was in. Um, can those switches be flipped back off?
Well, autoimmune is typically always coming from the gut. Uh, Leaky gut, because once the food leaks out through the intestines, then you have proteins floating through your blood. And then the body sends out its army to neutralize the enemy. And that can happen anywhere. You know, if it happens in your hands, they call that rheumatoid. If it happens up top and you lose hair, they call that alopecia. You know, if it happens in your entire body, they call that lupus. But it's all the same thing. So psoriasis is similar. It's like a scaling, a scabbing almost, you know, and it goes away pretty fast if you fix the gut. You could just as a starting point, just take some Celtic sea salt and put a pinch underneath your tongue 4 times a day. That will help build stomach acid, and the stomach acid will help you digest your food. And so just something like that could help dramatically. Of course, you would have to strengthen your tissue, your soft tissue to be exact. Your intestines are soft tissue. And so if your soft tissue was strong, then no proteins would be able to leak out. And so we're right back to that analysis where we're examining hard tissue, soft tissue, blood sugar, gut, and then the entire body and the mental status. And then it all connects. It's like a
Yeah.
puzzle. And by the time you get to 8 minutes in, everything's connecting. And you know, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a pretty cool thing.
Now, what about brain plasticity? I mean, are you doing that brain rewiring work with folks?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm such a fan
Absolutely.
of it.
You talking about like Dr. Joe Dispenza and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, yeah, because I was doing a program for a while and I was doing meditations and it was about like almost like welcoming this rash is like just a part of, you know, what's going on in my life right now, not fighting it. And it was just allowing it and then working to make changes in my life to help it subside, but not getting so, it was like that mental state of not getting so like caught up in it, like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Why can't I get this to go away? And doing that rewiring of the really a trauma response of, I can't believe this happened to me.
Yes. So we call that mindfulness training. And my method that I use, and I chose what I felt is the simplest method for people that are coming in brand new, fresh. And that's working with your inner child.
Oh, yeah.
And so the inner child is the nickname of your subconscious mind. So if it's just your subconscious mind, you don't really know what to do. But if you treat it as a child, now you can nurture it. You can't control it, but you can console it.
I love that
And
idea. Yeah.
and so once I get my people doing that, uh, so much progress happens. So much progress. I mean, yeah, just what you were saying. I mean, we have people that come in that are just so riddled with anxiety and fear because they've been through the medical monopoly, they've been through all this stuff, and every time a symptom comes, it's like, oh no, uh-oh. But with the method that we use, it settles you down and it gets you into a place of acceptance.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
that helps heal the body.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I know. I mean, I practice mindfulness daily. I live on Hilton Head Island, and so it's such a beautiful healing island anyway. It's the nature. And so I practice
Where's
my
that?
mind. It's in South Carolina, right at the very
Mm.
tip of South Carolina. And yeah, so being outside in nature, oh, it's just so healing. And I practice my mindfulness out there in nature with surrounded by all the beautiful trees and lagoons and even the alligators, even though I keep them far away.
Yeah. And when's the last time you hugged a tree?
I swear, I'm not kidding. My kids are like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, I can't believe you're a tree hugger." But it's for real. I go outside. We had these two beautiful, I call them the twins, these two huge pine trees over on in the far back of our lot in our yard. And I will go out there in my bare feet. I'll do some earthing and stand in my bare feet. And I'll put my hands on them and I just talk to them and I thank them for sharing their strength. And I envision their roots in the ground and my roots in the ground. I love it. I think trees are amazing.
Absolutely. I have a exercise in my program called the 7 trees.
Oh,
And so I teach people to find 7 trees, give them each a name, and keep going back to those trees and nurturing them, and to actually have a little conversation with all 7 and, memorize their name and all that. And yeah, it gets you in tune with, the trees are alive. They're alive.
Yeah.
So
That's beautiful. I'm going to go outside after this and we'll go talk to my trees because, again, I just think that's so cool. So thanks for that. I am. I'm going to go find 7 of them. Well, certainly I could sit here. It's been such an informative conversation, your wisdom. Thank you for sharing it. But I want to give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts you might have or anything we didn't get to touch upon.
the only final thing I can really say is to go get the Red Book at drkevinreese.com. I really, I've written 9 books, but this truly is the one. It is the one. I could write 9 more books. This is still the one. There's no way around it. This is the one I'll be remembered for. This is the one that could get me in trouble. This is the one that could do so many different things and help so many different people because they truly need a wake up call. And so, what better than a bright red little book that you can just put on someone's chair, Like, they're going to see it in the next 24 hours. There's no way to miss it. It's going to just sit on their chair. They're going to look down and they're going to go, medical monopoly. The evil empire you've been tricked to trust. What? And then they read the back and they're like, this book is like a bucket of cold water thrown on your face while you're sleeping. What is this? And they're going to, and then
Yeah.
there we go.
And there we go. I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for putting it out into the universe. I have the courage to do so. I mean, I just, again, so many people are, like you said, sleeping and need that cold bucket of water to the face, to the whole body.
Splash.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So how do people connect with you or do they find you?
drkevinreese.com is probably the best place. drkevinreese.com. Of course, I'm all over social media, and Facebook is our biggest platform. Again, 60-year-old woman.
Right, right. Exactly. I'm going. I'm going to go
Facebook.
sign up after I go talk to my 7 trees. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me and again for sharing your wisdom and yes, for putting that book out into the universe.
Thank you for having me and talking with me today.
Absolutely. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.